Joining me now, retired air traffic controller Harvey Skolnick and the Points Guy founder, Brian Kelly. Brian, I know that everywhere you go today, you get accosted. People have questions. I'll ask the broad one. Even if the House ultimately goes along with the Senate and there are still details to be worked out, what are people supposed to do? Are they supposed to expect when things will get back to normal?
Yeah, there is no getting back to normal anytime soon. I would give it a week from the time that the government officially ends the shutdown to a point where I think the DOT will think about getting rid of that cancellation, that 10%. But, the system is very fragile right now. We saw this weekend, a lot of airlines are on the verge of operational meltdowns. I think they're going to keep this reduced flights over the next 2 weeks, but I am hopeful that for Thanksgiving travel and certainly for people who are panicking about, Christmas and New Year, I do think the holidays are going to be functional.
I do wonder, though, Harvey, for air traffic controllers, the folks you used to work with, they don't know when back pay would come in, right? Same for TSA and same for anybody else. They don't know when that money is going to come in. So can we be assured that a week or two after they officially vote, if they officially vote to end the shutdown, things will get back to normal?
When people say things are going to get back to normal, it's like thinking that the controllers have walked off the job. They haven't walked off the job. There's nothing different now than there was a week before the shutdown, a year before the shutdown. Controllers have been working 6-day weeks, 10-hour days, can't get a day off.
But a lot more of
that is
them are
going to
calling in
change.
sick, and that's part of the problem, right?
That is the major part of the problem to maybe mitigate some of the extensive delays that we're having now, because controllers are calling in sick in inordinate numbers. And when a shift is normally supposed to have 8 to 10 people and only 4 show up, you have to do something with the traffic to meter it so that the people who are there in the towers and the trade cons and the centers can handle what's up there.
We've already heard from travelers who say, they've had it. They don't like the uncertainty. Let me give you a couple of examples.
I've alleviated the stress for the holidays. I've decided to not go anywhere. I'm just going to stay in Virginia. I'm going to drive to go get my mom from Savannah, Georgia, and just bring her to my place.
We've heard that, Brian, from more and more people. They're canceling plans. They're waiting to see, they're driving instead of flying. For people who don't have a high capacity for this kind of stress, is it longer than 2 weeks?
It could be.
Because January, look, here's what I was thinking. I used to ski, don't anymore, but my friends who plan ski trips in February and January 30th is where we could be confronting this again.
Yeah,
Can you plan that?
I think a lot of people are going international because those flights have been relatively unaffected. So if you're going to go thinking about skiing out west, it might be
the
year
Dolomites?
Yeah, the Dolomites are one of the hottest spots right now. So, no one can tell. But we saw this weekend, weather is a huge impact as well. Delta had a huge hit. Atlanta was, under really bad weather. So Chicago, we're seeing huge delays now. And the fact of the matter is, even when things go back to normal, we are still 4,000 air traffic controllers short. So this problem is going to keep coming back, just like this summer we saw with Newark. So we're not out of the woods anytime soon. So
we saw a posting, Harvey, today from the president. And he told everybody, all air traffic controllers, you must get back to work now. He says anyone who doesn't will be substantially docked, and he'll recommend a bonus of $10,000 per person for those who did keep showing up and for those that did nothing but complain and took time off, even though everyone knew they would be paid in full shortly into the future. I am not happy with you. What do you say to that?
Well, it's not the way I would try to get people to come back to work, with a slap in the face. I think you can get people. I think that there are things that they can do to get people to come back to work that has a positive slant. Promise to pay them now. Promise to perhaps reopen the collective bargaining agreement once it does reopen, with a promise to look at a raise. Look at ways of waiving the pay cap that controllers often have each month. Or there were times when I actually worked over the amount of hours and received pay that I didn't get because of the pay cap. There are things you can do. I don't know what he can do about docking people. It doesn't work that way in the federal government. When somebody is abusing or supposedly abusing sick leave, their supervisor would say, look, we think you might be abusing sick leave. Any future sick leaves might require us to, or require you to bring in a doctor's note each time. The collective bargaining agreement says that. I think the federal regulations say that. So, just slapping people in the face who have been working their buns off for not just this administration after administration after administration, which has really neglected the air traffic controller over the years, to now slap them in the face and say, I'm going to give your buddies $10,000. You, because your kid got sick on the day we called you in overtime, you're not going to get it. Just doesn't seem to me to be the way to reestablish effective air traffic control in the country.
Yeah, at a time when we know, as you pointed out, Brian, that we're in desperate need of more air traffic controllers. Harvey Skolnick, Brian Kelly, thank you both.
Can we just talk about the president and what he posted this morning, which I'm just going to read it. Yeah, okay. Very good question. This is about air traffic controllers. I'm going to read it. All air traffic controllers must get back to work now. Anyone who doesn't will be substantially docked. For those air traffic controllers who were great patriots and didn't take any time off for the Democratic shutdown hoax, I will be recommending a bonus of $10,000 per person for distinguished service to our country. For those that did nothing but complain and took time off, even though everyone knew they would be paid in full shortly into the future, I am not happy with you. You didn't step up to help the USA against fake Democratic attack that was only meant to hurt our country. Just keep that on the screen for 1 second as I go to you, Michelle. I think it's probably an educated guess that the people who didn't go to work weren't protesting. They didn't go to work because they had to find other ways to put food on the table for their children or to pay their rent or their mortgages. It's not because they just didn't feel like working. And if you look at something like this, it just is kind of snatching political defeat from the jaws of victory.
Right. And that's something Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, said throughout when he was having these news conferences at airports. He was very grateful for people who did show up, but he was understanding of these air traffic controllers who didn't show up because they were trying to find other ways to take care of their families. I think the one part of that, the president's message, it's a big if that $10,000 bonus ever materializes into legislation or if that gets paid out. But it is something that will resonate with the traveling public because they see it as, if they don't know why some of these workers didn't show up and they think, you should be rewarded for continuing to show up for this hard job. That could be something that could potentially be a message that resonates with the broader public, not people who are sympathetic to federal workers right now.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, was on State of the Union yesterday explaining that especially some of the new people, they just don't make enough money to be able to miss a paycheck or two or three.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I think even for people who may not be super sympathetic to federal workers, I think most people understand that if you work, you need to get paid, right? And that if you miss a paycheck and you have kids in daycare or something like that, they're not like, oh, well, you could just pay us another day. Oh, we don't care. Like, yes, there was help for federal workers, but like, it's still hard. And like, Giant or whoever, wherever you get your groceries from, they want their money then. And so I think that's very understandable.
And why didn't Trump offer this at the beginning of the shutdown?
Yes,
Too?
yes, it's like,
it's
a surprise.
Yeah.
Like, well, and it's also the way to make the civil service into a partisan thing. You didn't stand up for us against the Democrats. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of air traffic controllers who are conservatives,
It is,
right?
yes, and it is not a partisan thing to want to feed your family.
Yes.
President Trump is lashing out at air traffic controllers. In a social media post, the president demanding that all air traffic controllers must get back to work now. He also threatened to dock the pay of those who called out during the shutdown and give a $10,000 bonus to the workers he calls patriots who didn't miss any days. Despite progress on ending the standoff, nearly 3,000 flights have already been canceled for today and tomorrow, as staffing shortages have been reported at 17 airports across the country. CNN's Pete Montine joins us now live. Pete, bring us up to speed on the situation at airports today and how quickly things might return to normal.
Well, even though there is light at the end of the tunnel for getting to a shutdown deal, it does not seem that we will be totally out of the woods when it comes to these staffing shortages we have seen at airports across the country. The list today keeps going up and up. 25 different FAA facilities with understaffing issues today. We've seen staffing shortages in Atlanta at the Tracon there, the approach control facility there that's key for low altitude flights, Detroit and New York. Just add those to the list of the places that have had staffing shortages over the weekend. From Friday to Sunday, we saw about 150 staffing shortages at air traffic control facilities nationwide. 50 different facilities. We're talking all the way from San Juan to Anchorage, every major airline hub, and that pushed the number of cancellations higher and higher. We saw about 1,500 cancellations in the U.S. On Saturday, according to FlightAware. That number nearly doubled on Sunday, making it the worst day, fourth worst day, for flight cancellations since the start of 2024. It seems that things are really sort of in a perpetual motion machine and getting worse and worse. And today we've seen about 1,800 delays. 900 of them are because of the Trump administration mandated cuts to flights. You've seen the number for tomorrow there, 995. Those are airlines now loading in their cancellations for tomorrow as mandated by the Trump administration to siphon off some of the stress on the national airspace system and air traffic controllers who continue to work unpaid during this shutdown. This new statement by President Trump on Truth Social may be only insult to injury, given the fact that they are about to get another $0 paycheck to hit their bank accounts come tomorrow. I want you to listen now to Union Chief Nick Daniels. He's the head of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, and he says that controllers have really been stuck in the middle of this shutdown game since it started 41 days ago. Listen.
Now, history will remember who is responsible for the shutdown. The public and media will debate who won, but we all know who carried the weight of it and who has to pick up the pieces when it finally ends. It's us, the federal workforce, that has been the rope in this game of tug of war.
So even when this shutdown ends, controllers will get back pay for work they have done during the shutdown. Remember, they've been continuing to show up to work without pay for 41 days now. Some big questions now about whether or not there could be a bill in Congress to make it so that when the government shuts down again, and many controllers have been through more than one shutdown now, that they can continue to get paid. A lot of issues here when it comes to air traffic control staffing shortages. And even when the government reopens, the U.S. is still short between 1,000 and 2,000 controllers, according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and the FAA is scrambling to hire more. But Duffy says this makes it even harder. The threat of these shutdowns makes it even harder to lure people in to what is always already a very stressful career. Boris.
Yeah, this was an issue well before the shutdown. It seems like it will linger after the shutdown ends, once it does. Pete Montine, thank you so much for the reporting.
Joining us now is David Riley. He was an air traffic controller for years. He is now retired. I think there are only one other group of people that are more tired of this than the travelers, and that is the air traffic controllers. They are having to work under extremely difficult conditions, high stress conditions, without being paid. You called that mandatory scheduling cutback of 10%, which was announced by the Trump administration, of flights, kind of ludicrous. Why is that?
Yeah, good morning, Sarah. I appreciate you having me on. I want to give a big shout out to my fellow Marines because today's the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps. So happy birthday, Marines. The flight reduction is completely arbitrary. I don't think it's necessary. The FAA has plans and procedures to handle sectors that are heavier or towers that are heavier through traffic management initiatives to reduce the amount of traffic that's going into one particular airport or a sector. in the en route environment, that kind of thing. So just to arbitrarily come out with a number of saying you have to reduce your flights by 10% or 15% by Friday or 20, or we're going to shut the whole thing down by Thanksgiving, I think is completely ludicrous in the fact that the FAA has mechanisms to do that, to keep the safe skies in those sectors that need it.
Can you just give us a sense of what the stress is like as a controller, and add on to that the fact that they are not being paid and there are fewer and fewer people that are doing the job?
Yeah, prior to the shutdown, the controllers that have been working post-pandemic are under a lot of overtime. They've been working tons of overtime. They're extremely overworked and underpaid. And now you throw that the shutdown fact that they're not getting paid at all, it creates a huge distraction. And when you show up for work as an air traffic controller, you have to be on your A game, not only mentally but physically, to handle that type of stress and the work that you have to do day in and day out. And if you are distracted by trying to figure out how to pay your bills at home because you're not getting paid and yet being forced to work, that adds a whole nother level to it. And it needs to be addressed going forward on how this is handled in future situations like this.
Yeah, I mean, do you get the sense that the controllers, people say, oh, well, they're calling in sick, but they have bills to pay as well. Are you hearing that controllers are having to do other jobs while they're also doing their main job at the same time, and what that means to the controllers and the job that they're having to do to try to make sure that flights come in and go out safely?
Yeah, many are doing exactly that, picking up quick and easy jobs, rideshare drivers, food delivery, security guard jobs, something simple that they can bounce in and bounce out of. Obviously, they don't have time to forge a second career while working another career and not getting paid. And controllers have a contractual obligation to call out sick, if you will, or call out fatigued because they're not on their A game. So if they're not getting an adequate number of hours of sleep to be rested when they come back to work, they have an obligation, not only contractually, but morally, to say, hey, I'm not 100% on my A game today. So I probably shouldn't be talking to airplanes. I may be distracted. I may be fatigued, and it could, cause a situation that is unfavorable for everybody.
Yeah, well, I've got family members who are Marines too, so hoorah to you, and thank you so much for joining us this morning, David. Appreciate it.
The Great Shutdown. Every presidency faces a shutdown threat. Trump turned it into a governing tool. The latest crisis isn't a glitch in the system. It is the system. Departments unfunded, workers unpaid, services frozen, airports delayed, all because one man believes chaos proves control. He calls it negotiation by pressure. In reality, it's sabotage disguised as leadership. Federal employees line up at food banks. Veterans wait for benefits. Students lose scholarships. And Trump stands at the podium bragging about saving money. He's mistaken paralysis for power. When the lights go out in Washington, he doesn't see dysfunction. He sees drama. And for a performer addicted to attention, drama is oxygen. This shutdown didn't have to happen. Congress had bipartisan compromises on the table, but Trump wanted spectacle. He needed an enemy, and he found one in the same place he always does, anywhere that refuses to kneel. So he blamed the opposition, the media, and even the bureaucracy he commands. The government wasn't his tool. It was his hostage. The cost is catastrophic. National parks decay, research halts, food inspections stop, and security gaps widen. America, once the model of efficiency, now looks like a stalled engine coughing in front of the world. And while he tweets, no problem, from the White House, millions of federal workers wonder how to pay rent. But beyond the chaos lies something deeper, the erosion of faith. When people start believing the system itself is broken, democracy becomes a rumor. Trump didn't just close offices, he closed the idea of governance. He proved that with enough arrogance, a single man can hold a nation hostage to his ego. Shutdowns end, but scars remain. Trust takes years to rebuild. America's enemies don't need to hack its institutions. They just need to watch as its president turns them off. History will remember this not as fiscal prudence, but as the day the leader of the free world couldn't even keep his own house open.